Christmas, and welcome to the Crossings Christmas Special. I'm Nicole, your host for today. This is my absolute favorite time of year. I love the beauty of the lights and the decorations. Do you have decorating traditions? Like, do you give each other a unique ornament every year? Or do you let the kids just decorate the tree and let it be whatever it's gonna be? I used to want a perfect Christmas tree, like classic and perfectly color coordinated and designed. But that's not what we have. We have a tree full of memories and funny ornaments instead. Like I brought two to show you. We have These Really Do Live on My Tree, a Friends mug, and a TARDIS from Doctor Who. These are on my Christmas tree every day. And the one thing my whole family knows drives me crazy because it really ruins any classic, tasteful Christmas vibe that I was going for is this. It's this fiber optic mini tree that someone gave us years ago with weird little angels on it, and my kids love it. Do you love it? Would you put this out all December long? We do. Christmas is about memories, generosity, joy, embracing the imperfections so that we can truly love each other well. That's life. That's how God works. God embraces us and loves us well, no matter what our Christmas looks like. So today, gather up the people you love, and even a couple you feel just so-so about, and get your dog, your cat, your coziest blanket, and cuddle up. Let's enjoy some Christmas cheer. We've brought together a Christmas baking tradition, some carols to sing or hum along to, some fun and generosity and hope. Whatever this year has brought you, let this be a reminder that you are not alone, you are loved. Christmas is here.
Welcome back to Juliette's Cooking Show. I'm Juliette, and today we're going to be making white chocolate and peppermint cookies. The first step to our cookies is we have to chop up our peppermint pieces really thin until we reach about 1/3 of a cup. I need help doing this. Calling in the gang! Where are the wise men? Wise men! Just because you were 2 years late for baby Jesus' arrival doesn't mean you can be late for my baking show. We're gonna have to start making the mixture. We're gonna combine all of our wet ingredients, which is gonna be our vanilla extract, our eggs, our butter, and our sugar. Our eggs. We are going to use one large egg. Fun fact, this egg was laid by my very own chicken. I'm so proud of her. If you're doing this by hand, totally fine. But if you're doing this with the mixture, I recommend doing it only at speed 1 and 2.
Is it ready yet?
No. Now that our wet mixture is done, we're going to combine all of our dry ingredients. First, we're going to need, 1 cup and 3/4 of a cup of flour. Baking powder. Baking soda. We're going to mix this up a little bit. So much flour until this is nice and smooth. Wait, I almost forgot our white chocolate chips. Robert, give me the chocolate chips. I'll give you some later. Come on, let's go. Okay. We're gonna take our dough and roll it into about 1.5 to 2-inch balls. I have no idea what size that is, so I'm just gonna do it into tiny balls. Once we roll it into our tiny balls, we are going to dip it inside our peppermint pieces. Bake it in the oven at 350 degrees Fahrenheit. We're gonna cook it for about 10 minutes, but when you reach 8 minutes, go and check on it and see if it's nice and brown. Now they're ready to taste. Wanna try some
one-horse open sleigh. Hey, jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride in a one-horse open sleigh. Dashing through the snow in a one-horse open sleigh. O'er the fields we go, laughing all the way. Ha, 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 bells on bobtails ring, making spirits bright. What fun it is to ride and sing on a sleighing song tonight. Hey, jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride in a one-horse open sleigh. Hey, jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride in a one-horse open sleigh. Oh, yeah. Woo! Frosty the snowman was a jolly happy soul, with a corncob pipe and a button nose and two eyes made out of coal. Frosty the snowman is a fairy tale, they say, but the children say he can laugh and play just the same as you and me. Oh, there must have been some magic in that old silk hat they found, for when they placed it on his head, he began to dance around. Thumpity-thump, thump, thumpity-thump, thump, look at Frosty go! Thumpity-thump, thump, thumpity-thump, thump, over the hills of snow. Frosty the snowman was alive as he can be, and the children say he can laugh and play just the same as you and me. Yeah! Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer had a very shiny nose, and if you ever saw it, you would even say it glows. All of the other reindeers used to laugh and call him names. They never let poor Rudolph join in any reindeer games. Then one foggy Christmas Eve, Santa came to say, Rudolph, with your nose so bright,
won't you guide my sleigh tonight?
then all the reindeer loved him as they shouted out with glee. Whee! Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer, he'll go down in history. The Lord is come, let earth receive her King. Let every heart prepare him room, and heaven and nature sing, and heaven and nature sing, and heaven and nature sing, and heaven and nature sing. Oh, go tell it on the mountain, over the hills and everywhere. Go tell it on the mountain that Jesus Christ is born. Come on, sing it with us, go! Go tell it on the mountain, over the hills and everywhere. Go tell it on the mountain that Jesus Christ is born. Jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride in a one-horse open sleigh. Hey, jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, what fun it is to ride in a one-horse open sleigh. Open
Cooking with Juliette, Christmas carols with the sisters Kimi and Sammy. We hope these are fun gifts you can revisit with your family this Christmas season. And before we join Andrew to talk about hope and light, I want to say thank you to everyone who has given a year-end gift to The Crossing. If you don't know about our year-end gift campaign, here's a 1-minute video to show you the impact we are making together.
By making a year-end gift today, you will bring clean water to new families, provide mental health support to local students, and reach people with the life-changing power of Jesus. No one should have to live without clean water. Through our partnership with ADA, we are on our way to providing water filters for the entire country of El Salvador in the next 5 years. The Crossing is always looking for ways to care for the needs of local kids. This year brought our youngest neighbors a level of anxiety and struggle they had not seen before. Educators are speaking up about the urgency of this issue. Training for teachers plus resources in classrooms means educators will be able to help kids cope with the heightened challenges of life and overcome these new obstacles. Every donation makes a difference around the world, in our community, and in our church. Be a part of changing lives by making a year-end gift today.
The Crossing is known for the ways we reach out to our community. Each December, we invite you to give an extra gift above and beyond to The Crossing so that we can make an impact together. So give a gift at tcyearend.com and change someone's life. And then next year, we are ready to start winning together. Our next series, Win the Day, will motivate and inspire us to make 2022 a positive year in all of our lives. So new services will premiere online Saturdays at 5:30. And if you are in Orange County, we have on-campus services Sundays at 9:15 and 11:15, including on December 26th and January 2nd. And now, what do darkness, coyotes, Space Mountain, Jesus, and Christmas have to do with each other? Well, Andrew Brownback, our lead pastor, is about to explain. You never know how light will break into the darkest night.
The stars are brightly shining. It is the night of our dear Savior's birth.
Merry Christmas, everyone. My name is Andrew, and I want to start today with a very important question for you all. What is your favorite Christmas carol? Or let me rephrase it this way. If you were forced to listen to a Christmas carol the day after Halloween, which one are you choosing to listen all the way through? Feel free, take a second and pause the video if you're watching with people and just share. If my kids were here, they would choose the very spiritual Christmas song of Grandma Got Run Over by a Reindeer, which, I gotta be honest, as an adult, is a pretty messed up song, isn't it? Now, my personal favorite is Oh Holy Night. And one of the things I love about it is that usually you and I, we don't celebrate night. We don't celebrate darkness. Usually when we think of night, we get a little afraid. We get anxious. We get nervous because it's at night where our fears come alive. For instance, a few years ago, one of my children started waking up crazy early. I mean, parents, I know you've experienced this. It was 5 a.m. every day, and this wonderful child of mine would wake up talking, laughing, asking for breakfast every single day. So we got in this routine. I'd get up with him, get him a little snack, I'd put him in our jogging stroller, and we would head out for a morning run at 5:15. Now, you gotta understand, I live in Costa Mesa. For those of you watching all over the country, Costa Mesa is not some farm town out in the middle of nowhere. It's a pretty decently populated area. So my son and I, we would head out in what felt like the middle of the night for a run. Well, one day we're out and I'm running and he's enjoying his snack and I'm heading down this long, dark street. And off in the distance, I see this runner coming towards me. And as this runner gets closer, he starts waving me down. Not like a normal runner wave, like, way to be awesome, you're out before the sun is up. No, it's like a, whoa, slow down, something's up. So I slow to a stop. And this runner tells me that as he has been coming towards me, he has noticed that a coyote has been following me for who knows how long. That unbeknownst to me, there has been a disease-ridden, 50-pound, four-legged creature just a few feet away. So I slowly turn around. And sure enough, there is a coyote maybe 15 feet away just watching us, looking at my 2-year-old as a delicious early morning snack. Now, intellectually, I know the odds of a coyote attacking us are slim to none. But in the dead of night, when you are surrounded by darkness, rational thinking, it goes out the window. So as quick as I can, I take off with my son and we beeline back home. I mean, the whole time I got my head on a swivel, I'm watching for this coyote, and I'm ready to fight to the death if I have to. And I'll tell you, from that night on, I never took him back on a run in the dark. Because there is just something about the darkness that brings out the fear in us, doesn't it? It's why some of you love watching horror movies at 2 a.m. in the dark. In fact, let's take a moment right now. Why don't you just pause the video if you're watching with someone and just share one thing that you are terrified about finding in the dark. Let me give you an example. For me, I am not a spider person. So when it's really dark, I always imagine there is like a hairy, huge, disgusting spider nearby. So just take a second and share. You see, darkness, night, it represents every fear, every enemy, some real, some imagined. This is even true in the Bible. A prophet by the name of Joel, when speaking of an impending disaster coming to his country, he uses this language of darkness to convey how bad, how terrible it will be. Joel chapter 2, he says, a day of darkness and gloom. A day of clouds and blackness, a large and mighty army comes, such as never was in ancient times, nor ever will be in ages to come. He says, there is a day coming upon his people, a day of fear and terror, a day of darkness and gloom. Or during the life of Jesus, when he is arrested and is on his way to die, he says to those trying to kill him, this is your hour, when darkness reigns. And then when Jesus is hanging from the cross, one of his followers, a guy by the name of Matthew, tells us, he says, from noon until 3 in the afternoon, darkness came over all the land. Darkness, night, it's not just a time of day, it's a place. It's a place of loss, a place of fear and anxiety. It's a place of confusion and despair. And honestly, this year, as we approach Christmas, this is where some of you are. Maybe you're not much of a church person, but maybe this year has been full of darkness for you. This year, you've lost a loved one, and there's this empty place at your table. Or this year, you have a son or daughter deployed overseas, and the anxiety you feel for their safety is just overwhelming. Others of you think we're going great until your boss dropped that word downsizing, and now the Christmas you hoped for is so very different from the Christmas you're having. Or maybe for you, you've been working hard to make this Christmas perfect for everyone around you, but no one appreciates it. Your spouse, your parents, your kids, whoever. The amount of complaining and arguing, it has brought gloom and darkness to you. Even for you kids watching. For some of you, this Christmas, it doesn't have the normal fun feeling because this year was marked by darkness. Because this year, your parents got divorced. And while your friends tell you how cool it is to have 2 Christmases, honestly, if you could have one wish come true this year, it would be simply to have your family under one roof just one more time. You see, so many people I talk to right now are entering this Christmas in a place of loss or uncertainty. Now, this may surprise you, but this is the backdrop of the Christmas story. You see, years before Jesus was born, there was a group of people, a nation known as Israel. And they were in a place of uncertainty, a place of pain, of darkness and night. And to them, these words were spoken in Isaiah chapter 9. The people walking in darkness have seen a great light. On those living in the land of deep darkness, a light has dawned. That the people who find themselves today walking in darkness, those of us who, if we're honest, would say life isn't going the way we planned, those of us who have experienced the darkness, the coldness, the death that night brings, he says they have seen a great light. Now, we all know the opposite of darkness is light. So if night represents cold and darkness and death, then obviously light does the opposite. Light does three things. First, light brings warmth. Think about all those mornings recently. It's cold, it's dark, but then you know that great moment when the first rays of sunshine come through the cloud cover and it goes from a freezing 55 to a nice warm 63. You see, light brings warmth. Second, light brings sight. Parents, think about the last time you were walking through your house in the middle of the night and you stepped on your stupid little Lego that your kids left out. Remember that crippling pain in your foot? Remember that word you yelled out that you had to apologize later for? You see, remember how badly you wished you would have just turned on a light to see. Light illuminates the dark. Light brings sight. And then finally, light brings life. I have a question for you kids watching. I know school is out right now, but what's the name of the process where plants take light and turn it into food and energy? You know this, right, kids? You probably can't spell it, but you know what it's called, don't you? It's called photosynthesis. You see, light brings life, and not just for plants, but for people. Research has found people who don't get enough sunlight, they suffer from all kinds of physical issues. Lack of sunlight has been found to lead to increasing your risk of getting sick, to joint pain. Lack of sunlight leads to digestive issues, insomnia, and an increase in depression and anxiety. I mean, talk to anyone who has struggled with seasonal depression, and they will tell you about the benefit of living in Southern California and the 365 days of sunlight we get. Because they know there is healing power in light. You see, light brings life. And so when Isaiah, this prophet, when he speaks to those of us living in darkness, a people who have experienced night, who have experienced the coldness, the darkness this world offers, and he says to them, a great light is coming into our world, he is declaring the message of Christmas. That for far too long, our world has been plunged in darkness. And you know what? We all see that in the world around us. I mean, think about all the bad things that have happened in our world in just the past couple of years. There are too many to name. Think about all the bad things that have ever happened to you. And then let's be honest, let's think of all the bad things that we have done that we're not proud of. You see, that is night. That there is darkness in this world. But in the midst of this, Isaiah the prophet, he says, a light has dawned. An angel comes to a young girl named Mary. And he says to her, do not be afraid, Mary. You have found favor with God. You will conceive and give birth to a son, and you are to call him Jesus. He will be great and will be called the Son of the Most High. And this child, born in a manger, this child who would grow up and one day say things like, love your neighbor as yourself. If someone strikes you on the right cheek, turn to them the other. This man who would say things like, blessed are the merciful, and blessed are the peacemaker. This man who would heal the sick, serve the poor, care for the foreigner, the widow, the orphan. This man, Jesus, who one of his followers would later say this about him. In him was life, and that life was the light of all mankind. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. That in a world of darkness, in a world of so much pain and suffering, a world where there is so much fear and anxiety, that at a time where it's so easy to get cynical or give up, that there is a light. A light has dawned. A light has broken through the darkness. few years ago, my wife and I, we brought our family to Disneyland for the first time. Now, just a confession, I grew up in Chicago, and there is no Disneyland in Chicago. All you get in Chicago is a carnival where some 16-year-old kid puts up a 20-year-old roller coaster. So, needless to say, I've never been a big roller coaster guy. Honestly, they kind of stress me out, to be honest. But our kids, they were reaching the age where if you live in Southern California like I do, and you don't take them to Disney, people start judging your parenting. So, we took our 4-year-old and our 6-year-old to Disney. And we did all the little kids rides you'd expect. We did this cool ride from the movie Cars. We did the adventure train. We did this Pinocchio ride. And then there was this Buzz Lightyear ride, which was great. It had lasers. I mean, they were amazing. Because I loved it, they loved it. Because I mentioned this, I'm not a big roller coaster guy. Well, eventually, we get to this ride called Space Mountain. Now, I have never been on Space Mountain. In fact, I knew virtually nothing about Space Mountain. I had no idea that it is a 3-minute ride of pure terror in darkness. So when my 6-year-old, who by the way has never been on a real roller coaster, he says to me, "Dad, can we go on this ride, Space Mountain?" I said, "Sure, let's do it. It'll be fun." Now, if you haven't been on Space Mountain or you don't live in California, there is this energy as you get to the front of line in Space Mountain. I mean, you can feel the excitement people have as they're getting into the roller coaster cars or they're returning from the ride. So my son and I, we get all the way up to the front of this line. And honestly, I start getting a little nervous. I mean, I'm nervous because this ride, it doesn't look like the Pinocchio ride or the adventure train. This is a legit roller coaster. But since I'm the dad, I've got to play it cool. So my son and I, we get buckled into the car, and we're all buckled in, and then immediately this ride starts, and we are plunged into complete darkness. I mean, it's like night. It's pitch black in there. Just me and my 6-year-old son, who, by the way, needs a nightlight to fall asleep. And I don't want to exaggerate here, but I'm pretty sure that within the first few seconds, we are flying around at like 200 miles an hour on this ride. Now, we're only a few seconds into this ride, but at this point, as a dad, I'm freaking out because I'm thinking, this ride, it's going so fast, it's so loud, but most importantly, it is just so dark in here. I'm thinking to myself that my son must be terrified. I mean, we're only a few inches apart, but I can't even see him. So I call out to him. His name's Evan. I call out to him, "Evan, are you okay?" But because it's so loud, I can't hear his response. So now I have this moment where I'm just picturing him. And I'm picturing him just terrified and he's sitting next to me. I'm picturing him just sobbing, just begging for the ride to be done. I'm picturing the years of therapy he's gonna need after this ride. I'm picturing the look my wife will give me when she sees our little boy afterwards and realizes what I just put him through. I mean, it was terrible. I got beads of sweat coming down my forehead as we go around this another turn at like 200 miles an hour again, and I'm just sitting next to my son, who I can't see or hear. So in that moment, I do the only thing I can think of. I reach out my hand, and I just grab his little hand. And I just start speaking to him as loud as I can. I call out to my son in the dark, and I say, "I'm right here. I love you, buddy. Your father is with you, and I'm never gonna leave you." And I just say that over and over and over again. I've got you. I'm with you. I'll never leave you. Now, eventually, we reach this point where the ride begins to slow. Where up ahead for the first time out of the darkness, you begin to see a light. It's the first signal to the end of this ride, the end of the darkness. I mean, these 3 minutes, they probably took 5 years off my life. I mean, we reached the end of the ride and I'm exhausted, I'm stressed. I mean, I've gone through not just a physical roller coaster, but an emotional one as well. I mean, have I mentioned to you, I'm not a big roller coaster person? Well, eventually we make it out of the tunnel. Eventually we leave the darkness and we enter the light. And so the very first thing I do is I look over at my precious little 6-year-old. This child, I imagine, has been psychologically scarred over the last few minutes. I turn towards him, and he turns right towards me with his precious, innocent, big blue eyes. And he looks at me, and I'll never forget the first words out of his mouth. He says to me, "That was amazing! Can we do it again, Dad? Can we, please, Dad, can we please go on that ride again? Please, Dad." I mean, he did great. It is by far and away his favorite roller coaster. Dad, on the other hand, did not do so great. Dad was worried. Dad was stressed, exhausted, and afraid. You see, turns out these words spoken in the dark, that message, that the darkness won't last forever, that you have a Father who will never leave you, never abandon you. Turns out that message, it wasn't for him. That message was for me. That as we went through the darkness, as I sat there feeling out of control, consumed with anxiety and fear, that I was the one who needed to hear these words from a Father. I've got you. I'm with you. I'll never leave you. And I'll tell you, some of you watching today, you thought you were watching as a favor to your boyfriend or girlfriend, or maybe you did it as a gift for your mom so she wouldn't nag you about attending a church. But it turns out that today, this message, it's not for them, it's for you. Because what they don't know is that you've been walking in darkness. That you are in a season where you don't have all the answers, where you feel alone, where you are anxious, or you're worried or hurting. And today, for the first time, you realize that while you're walking in darkness, a light has dawned. I mean, maybe today's the day it's going to click for you. That the story of Christmas, the story of Jesus entering our world, entering our lives, it's not just something that happened 2,000 years ago, but it still happens today. That Jesus still does his best work for those of us walking in darkness. That is what we celebrate at Christmas each year, that Jesus is still calling people out of darkness into the light, that Jesus still changes lives. That the miracle that happened 2,000 years ago, it can happen today. That there is love and hope, joy and forgiveness available for each and every single one of us. And today I can think of no better time than the Christmas season to accept that gift. So I'm going to take a moment here and just pause, and I'm going to pray, and then I just want to share 2 more things with you before we close. And so if you just would, wherever you're sitting, even if you're with your family, just take a moment and let's just pray together. So God, we come to you this Christmas season, and we thank you for being a good and gracious God. And we thank you, God, that in the darkest moments, that you, God, bring light. And as we walk into the Christmas season this year, that you bring light into our lives. That you bring joy and hope and forgiveness for each and every one of us today. And so, God, for this gift, we simply say thank you. And we pray this in your Son's name. Amen. Now, 2 quick things before we close. First is I want to just say thank you. One of the things I love about our church is how many of you have stepped up to bring light to the dark places in our world. This year alone, we asked our church to go above and beyond to reach our goal of providing clean water for 500 families in El Salvador. 500 families who every day wrestle with and worry about something that you and I take for granted, clean drinking water. Or how a couple of weeks ago, we talked about how many kids in our local schools are struggling right now with things like anxiety and depression and panic attacks, and how we can lead the way in bringing light to a local school by providing mental health resources and trainings. And that doesn't even begin to describe all the good that happens on this campus each and every week. So I just personally want to say thank you to all of you who have already gone above and beyond what you currently give to bring light. And today, I want to thank all of you who are prepared to give, or others of you who God is challenging you to give for the very first time. I want to say thank you because you are bringing light into a broken and hurting world. Now, before we close, we have one final tradition. You're going to hear the song Silent Night. And for those of you watching with friends and families, this is a moment for you to just tell the people you're with how much they mean to you. I know it might feel a little awkward as you hear this song, but here's what I want you to say. Just say the words, "Hey, I'm glad we're getting a chance to spend Christmas together." Or, "Thanks so much for traveling to come see us." I mean, just look each person in the eye and say one nice thing. Others of you maybe use this moment, if you're watching by yourself, to call or text family or loved ones and just say how grateful you are for them. And then I'll say this, from the bottom of my heart, I want to say thank you for spending a little bit of time with us this Christmas season. Merry Christmas, everyone.
Silent night, holy night, all is calm, all is bright, round yon virgin mother and child, holy infant so tender and mild, sleep in heavenly peace, sleep in heavenly peace.